Hello, Active Sage here on the Sage channel, and today we are not going to be looking at the actual Vanguard Warden that's sitting here in front of us. No, in fact, we're just going to be looking at the Apocalypse Arms weapon on the front of it. Now, I have been planning to do a video taking a proper look at the Vanguard since it's been flyable for, I don't know, a month or so now. Problem is, I've tried to record it about 3 times, and every time I get hung up with some little details that are bugging me. Like, slightly blurry textures and some issues, like if I was to run under here just really quickly, just to show you what I'm talking about. Boop, and look up. You'll notice there's this sort of triangular thing right here. This right here. A little bit of an issue with some clipping, you can see right through it. There's some issues like that throughout a lot of the ship, and blurred textures and whatnot in a few little spots, as well as some odd geometry on the sides here that I find. And also, it's a very difficult ship to actually get a good look at, and its silhouette has changed, because if you look at the concept art top view, looked pretty damn nifty with some punch in, and then the final version has just sort of straight lines, and somebody said it's still a work in progress ship. So I'm holding off on that. No, instead, today, what we're doing is looking at this Apocalypse Arms weapon right here, because it's got a better detail level than the ship currently. Unless there's been a little hotfix, I missed it, but last time I took a look at the ship, I don't know, a lot of the bevels feel a bit too smooth, and it just feels like the whole ship's made out of rubber when you're walking around the base of it. Maybe it would help if I had a working flashlight in the hangar. Anyway, this is the Apocalypse Arms. What's this exact name? Let me go look that up real quick. Apocalypse Arms Revenant Ballistic Gatling gun, I'm assuming. I'm assuming the last word is Gatling gun. Anyway, yeah, it's a size 4 weapon, pretty damn hefty. I don't like it because I don't like running out of ammo, but the damn thing looks beautiful, so let's take an extremely close look at it, shall we? Now, I guess the best way to do an extremely close look at of just the gun is similar to a ship. Start at the front, work our way to the back. That said, it is a goddamn beautiful gun. I actually love the shapes, the lines, the curves of this gun far more than pretty much any ship they've actually put out, except for maybe those really, really large ships that I can't really remember the name of right now that, well, they got leaked when Disco Lando accidentally showed us some stuff. Those are pretty awesome ships, but they're nowhere near done. This gun, I believe, is done, and I love it. So let's go ahead and head to the front, and as we keep going, I'll explain some of the other things I love. Starting at the front of it, the detailing here is fantastic, and the fact that these are actually cylindrical barrels with an interior of the barrel at least somewhat modeled in, going back a little while. It's pretty awesome that they have all that detail. And then, of course, on the tops and bottoms of each singular barrel, we have a square bump out that comes up. And I should point out, if we were to go ahead and walk to the side of this, it doesn't just go straight up and down. No, dear sir and or madam. It has this wonderful little tiny slant to it, so it actually slants downwards. And then actually, look at this, it goes straight down and then bumps out again, actually giving a slight lip to the actual center portion of these barrels. An incredible amount of little detail. And actually, if you were to look here, there's a little bump out right here at this point. It's a little hard to see, everything's bumping a little bit because the ships move for some reason in the hangar, but you can see there's a bump up right there where it is actually bumping out. So the actual ends of these guns actually have modeled in geometry right there to actually give them sort of a lip at the end, and then a second little tiny rim around the center point before it actually goes back into it. And you can see also in the normal maps there, I believe that's actually in the normal maps, not modeled in, they have these little indentation lines on the inside, which is pretty damn cool. I wish this ship would sit still, but unfortunately it's a glitch for the ships currently in the hangar. Like I said, they move. Heading back from there, you can see we even have warning text that is actually legible. The textures here might come off as a bit blurry, but you're not supposed to be necessarily directly right up to them, so I'm kind of alright with it because I think this distance still looks pretty damn good for the most part. But it should be pointed out that even at this, they're alright. They just get a little bit blurry, and it still looks mainly like this is just slightly worn away paint, exposing metal underneath it, which is awesome. And the fact that you can actually read the warning label stuck to the side of it is pretty awesome as well. I believe it's a projected decal. I could be completely wrong. Moving on from there, we do have this sort of block right here. You'll notice it's a whole block and actually takes up the whole center point right here. You'll often see this on sort of Gatling gun type things where they have all these supports that hold all the different barrels together to keep them from spinning apart and just bending themselves outwards once the whole thing gets spun up. Well, this isn't just a simple ring that they've gone ahead and put in here or something like that. It isn't even just like little simple connection joints between the different barrels either. You'll actually notice that look right here where I'm aiming. There's a little tiny gap right there where this thing doesn't actually touch the barrel at all. It has a circular cutout here where the barrel goes through it, and then these little parts arch upwards and connect into the support beams on the tops and bottoms of the barrel. You can even see down here, there's a whole cylindrical section that fills in the whole thing with a little detailing stuck in there that looks sort of like a spinnable joint that you can almost loosen to take the whole thing apart. That's all normal detail there, but they have actually modeled in the fact that it has that opening there, which is fantastic, and I absolutely adore it. And they've also taken the time to bevel this little edge right there, as well as the edge on the other side, to make sure the whole thing actually is pretty damn hefty feeling without just looking like low poly geometry, which is awesome. And of course, it isn't also just straight up and down between these barrels, like you might expect a flat plane to go straight from there all the way up. Nope, they actually have the indentation in there. That way, when you're standing farther back, it still gives you the feeling of each of these barrels having their own different segments from one another, instead of them all starting to just merge together if they didn't have that little indentation in on the actual things holding it all together. Pretty awesome. Moving on from there, we can come up to another one of those, same exact model, I'm pretty sure, just scooted back, duplicated, placed here. We also have some normal map detail right here, just to ensure that this isn't just a straight line going from front to back of these barrels. Awesome amount of little tiny detail there. And then we have what is this starts to get to why I really love this gun and the design of this gun, and how I just wish there were ships like this, is this point right here. If we were to go ahead and back up, and you were to rotate your head to the right, or I can just move the image, it almost reminds me of like the Tower of Saruman or Sauron. It is awesome. I absolutely adore it because it looks like sort of this Gothic-esque tower. It is awesome. But even looking at it just standard, the fact that they have these different sheaths, these different layers here, it's all layered metal. It's not just one big bulk of metal. It's not just maybe one that has plates just jutting out of it. These are all separate plates that have an actual little air gap in between each of them. If we look around here, you can actually see there's an air gap in between each of these pieces of metal. And it's actually a pretty damn awesome thing, and the fact that if we were to go ahead and look straight on at these, you can see the majority of them, because there's 3 plates on top. The majority of them, imagine we were looking directly dead on at it. So can we scoot back here? We can't really see it. But basically they go from here, they go up, they have a flat surface, and then they go back down at the same angle it was on the other side. Except for the very top one, which goes straight up in an angle, and then straight across, and then of course back down at another angle and straight down again. And I'll go ahead and go closer up to them. I just want to show you how they were from if you're looking dead on them. That way you could appreciate the angles they have stuck in there. That's just from the front. Once you go to the side, they don't just go straight down, you know, like from this point down to this point. No, they actually curve backwards at an angle. Now, I do sort of wish this angle matched this angle right here, but it's a very minor thing that they don't. And it's also pretty cool that they also have an angle thing here. So this actually goes up farther. This is that one that has a straight up and down. This is a straight up and down point here, which is pretty damn cool. But they also have the angle here, so that when you're looking at it from the side, it still has a sort of angular cut-in, just like these other pieces did. And oddly enough, the angular piece right here, that if we were looking dead on was the one that would have an angle, the same as these, it doesn't have an angled cut to the front that goes at a, what is that, not a 90, a 45 degree angle or so, like this. No, it has it straight up, and then has a little bit of a bump out. And unfortunately, it's really hard to see here. If we could only, maybe it's mirrored on the bottom. Yes, it is. Look at this. It's so cool. Because that part that bumps out stays out only for a little bit as a flat section, and then it bumps back down. As if these little parts that are just sticking out are almost caps, just reaching out to hold on to these plates that are on the side. And I'm pretty sure, have I made a mistake here? I'm pretty sure these plates actually... Oh, maybe I was wrong. See, I thought they had that flat cap on all of them, but it looks like the one at the very top outer one is the only one that has it. So these other ones, these are just plates that are just on the sides. And then they have this nice little... like I said, everything's beveled. It's fantastic. I really did think there was a plane in between this line and this line, capping that off just the same way this has its angle, cap, angle. But apparently not. Either way, though, still pretty damn cool, and of course, from the side, it's absolutely freaking gorgeous. I absolutely love this thing more than I probably really should. And they've also gone ahead and taken the time to place into the texture and the normal maps these awesome little bolt things here and here, beveled all the bloody edges, as well as gone ahead and had a little tiny bit of texture stuff on them. As well as, instead of just having straight angle from this point down to this point, they have this little flat surface right here. Same with this one. An incredible amount of little tiny details that make the whole thing so damn beautiful once it's all put together. Absolutely adore it. And as we come back farther, you'll even notice that they've gone ahead and they have this little cut in right here that they got there. It's at the top, over there as well, and then down here as well. A nifty little cut in here where you can actually see it's modeled in there. It's not just a texture or something. They've actually gone ahead and made a cut in, and it's not just a rectangle. It's a rectangle with some nice little beveled edges right here. So this, instead of it just being a hard 90-degree corner right there, they have this nice little beautiful bevels stuck in all of them. Awesome. And of course it still has texture detail there where the textures have worn away a bit. Let's see, is this texture mirrored on both sides? So you can see the best way to check that is probably we have this huge chop in right here where the paint has been worn away sort of. Do we have that on the other side? No, we don't. So that's pretty damn cool that the sides are different actually too. So I don't know how exactly they're doing this painting and stuff, but I almost feel like this isn't just a standard UV map laid out. I almost feel like this is some sort of special thing where they can actually tell it where to set up this wear and tear on stuff. I hope that's the case. It would make it extremely easy for them to continue building high detail stuff like this as they carried forward. Anyway, moving on from there, the little tiny cut-ins, we should also take a moment to look at this little piece right here that sort of holds this whole cap section on, and it then goes back and merges into the body of the gun, or at least another section of the gun, because there's almost no direct just big bulk body of this. It actually looks like the whole thing is made out of tiny little pieces, which is fantastic. It's awesome beyond all reason. And you should also probably note that this doesn't just have an angle that goes straight down and merges into it. They actually have a little flat surface there. They give it almost a lip. You know, it's not really a lip, but it divides it up instead of just mushing in there. They have this nice little drop down, straight down before it comes back an angle, before it goes back flat, and then bends upwards, just to match this bending upwards angle here and merging into this bigger bulk right there. Absolutely incredible. I love this thing. And of course it's the same on the very top of the gun. If we were to jump, I'll just try to get you a freeze frame so you can see it right there. They do indeed have the same sort of thing. Just incredible. Also, I'd like to point out the fact that they have this, you know, the biggest bulk here where it has a flat surface on the very top of it and everything, and it comes down at an angle and then goes straight back. That's awesome. What's even cooler is the fact that they don't have these lined up. So this isn't lined up with this, up and down. Same with this. So it's as if this whole section here, when it was duplicated and moved to the bottom, was shifted backwards to have this nice bit of an offset. That way, because this gun, it can't be mounted upside down, it still feels like it has a top and a bottom to the gun, as if it's a hand reaching forward, which is really, really damn cool. You know, a hand with maybe the undertermed thumb. So you get all the top fingers here, and this is the thumb reaching out below. Very, very cool. I absolutely adore this gun. Looking at the center section again, this is where all of the barrels now merge into one, which is pretty damn cool because the barrel's right here. This is the barrel right here, this circular thing. And then we have that rectangular bump out. Well, the rectangular bump out, if you look, actually sort of leads all the way back. It doesn't just hit a flat surface and vanish. It goes all the way back, and you can even see above it right here, there's a little tiny bit of a bevel or something that looks like it's bent down, where this sort of darker metal bends down and meets up with it, so it still looks like they're two separate pieces that have been sort of merged together. Maybe there's bolts or something under there that clamps and holds them together. Heck, maybe if you loosen this thing right here, it pulls a screw sideways out of this in some way, so this whole section becomes free. So until you can pull them out and replace them. And you can even see right here, they have an opening under here, which means it's the same thing as back here with these, but they've actually taken the time to model that in there, which is absolutely incredible. I love that. And then of course we also get the same sort of design where we had it bumping down right here. I think this one might be a little bit different if we line it, yeah, like this, because in the past, where we had this section at the very right of your screen now, where it bumped inwards, it of course was flush then, whereas this is actually pushed outwards towards the camera right now a little bit more right here. And so this whole flat surface right here that I'm mousing over isn't lined up with the flat surface on the side right here. Pretty damn nifty, actually. I love that. It's a little tiny detail, but it sort of helps to pull it all together without it just being a flat surface, which is absolutely incredible. And of course, the edges are all beveled here, which is a nice little touch, even if they do look a bit over smooth at times. Still pretty nice. And of course, from this distance, they all just look pretty good for the most part. Moving down here, we get I don't believe any of this line right here is modeled in. It's hard to tell sometimes with the way they do things in this game. Oh god, let's stop. Like, we get our head close and it bounces back away. It's times like this I wish I had like the Vive or Oculus on and I could just lean my head in and stick it right up to it. But it's really hard to tell. This might actually be modeled in, at least the overall shape of it. So along this line from this corner to that corner, all the way down like that, that might be modeled in. But all these little details, these almost teeth and this big orangish yellow line, I don't think that's modeled in there. I think that's just a texture. But it actually looks like they did model in the actual indentation of the whole thing, though, which is pretty nifty. And of course, you can see here at the very end, we got that yellow dot, as if this whole orange thing that's glowing sort of comes to an end point there. And you see we have them at all of the different sides of that centerpiece there. Now, above and below this section, if we were to crouch down, you can actually see we have this rather interesting thing sticking out here. It's the same thing that this merges into. It merges into this sort of, I don't know what to call it. It's not really an oval. It's not a rectangle either, but it's pretty damn interesting, particularly if you look at it straight on. It almost looks like a belt pulley or something that you would see in a vehicle, where clearly it looks like there's a joint here where the belt pulley would go around this and lead up and around a larger gear or something up there, or a larger pulley. So pretty damn cool, and it's awesome that it does have this slight angle that comes in and then a rounded bottom instead of, just a big rectangle straight up and down, or even one that came in and just had a little bit of a bevel here and went back up at an angle. It's actually got the rounded base, and that's of course mirrored at the top of this. And because they do actually care about top and bottom of this one, if we look at the top version, you can see they actually have the Apocalypse Arms logo stuck up there instead of just another spinning cog point, which is pretty damn cool. Moving on, the top and bottom now are similar for this section, so a lot like up here where we had the different panels that were on top of each other, we have a bunch of different panels here, and it looks like the top and bottom are mostly the same, with, once again, some minor offset left to right compared to their brethren at the top and bottom. So basically, this line does not line up vertically with this line. They're offset to give you a little bit more different feeling of the top and bottom. And they're mainly made up for, you mainly notice that just because this piece is a lot longer with this piece, or at least more of it is exposed left to right. Moving back in close, though, you can see there is actually a stupid amount of detail in here. I mean, let's get our nose right up into this. And I mean, look at that. They've actually gone ahead, and it looks like first off, there's a gap right here, which I think, yeah, good. You can see that it's an actual legitimate gap that just leads in there. That pulley thing that we were looking at right there, the thing I said looks like a pulley, you can see it's stuck out there, but then it just meets up with a flat surface, which is all right, because the flat surface that it meets up to right here at the top has its own little tiny bevel that makes it look like it's merging into this section here, and of course then it goes down and merges into the side panels here. You can still see there's a circular piece in there, so the pulley piece that turns into a almost, what do you want to call it, a barrel or a dolly rod right here that goes back. Pretty awesome. And then it has a little tiny bit more of it on the other side of another block, another up-down vertical support. So we got this support, which holds in that pulley-like thing, and then we got the piping that goes through these supports, has a little tiny mouth on it, and then, or a lip on it right here before it goes back the rest of the way, but it also has the other vertical one, and it's all one big piece, so it all looks like it's designed to hold together really sturdy, really well. And then we also have the fact that this is modeled in right here, this indentation, and all the lines here are pretty damn fascinating, really. If we were to try to get a very good angle, it's a shame I can't like half squat or something, or go into spectator mode like I would in Space Engineers and just drift my camera like right up to the angle I want. But the main thing here is that we have a flat surface, an angle, another flat surface, and then it goes straight up, which is pretty damn nifty that they actually, instead of it just being an angle from the bottom right all the way up to the very top left, they have little tiny flat areas to give it more more information, more detail. And just like on the right here where this sort of has its little lip, which means it actually gives a bumped in feeling to that whole pulley up down thing, this whole section right here, mirroring the same shape it had on the bottom, is all bumped inwards. It's pushed inwards, and I believe it's actually modeled in like that. So you get this sort of indentation from this angle of this area, and then this is all indented right in there as well. It's just, I love this gun. The amount of detail. I mean, look at this. We've literally gone, what is that, 5 feet? It's a little hard to tell because our character, but 5, 6 feet. It's a huge, huge gun if you couldn't tell. It is absolutely humongous. But the amount of detail in, 5 to 8 feet or so is just incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible amount of detail just on this. And the amount of thought that went into, making sure if you have an angle or a flat surface this way, you have another angle or flat surface or a bevel to counter it. And it's not exactly up-down symmetrical. It has a little tiny bit of an offset because it does have a top and bottom. I mean, I absolutely love it. It's incredible, this gun. At the top, of course, it's pretty much the exact same as what we just saw at the bottom. And then, of course, we do have these metal plates. Oddly enough, there is a tiny bit of text you can see right there. DC voltage is always present when solar modules exposed to sunlight. So apparently it's got solar modules and it'll always have DC power? Apparently. I have no idea where the solar modules are. Oh, no clue at all, actually. Pretty damn cool, though. And then, of course, we can actually take the time and look at these panels here to see if there's anything we've really missed. Not really. You can see, God forgive the jumpy camera. There's no, gentle little tiny movements, even though I'm using a controller for a lot of this. But you can see this has its cut in at the very bottom there, right here. That, again, has a flat surface. It goes up. Beveled edges. I love beveled edges that still look relatively strong. The worn metal really helps. And then it goes straight up once it gets up here. And that's the same sort of thing that we had right here, actually, if you look. It's the same sort of thing, because it goes up, straight, and then back down. But this one up here, you might be saying, Sage, it doesn't go back down. Well, it does, actually, my friend. It just goes back down from the side, you can see here, has its flat area, and then it goes back down. And because this has this little thing, it makes this whole huge section here feel like it's holding onto the corners of this support that's inside of it. Same sort of thing that we got with these, trying to hold on to the corners of the one below it. Now, of course, you could make the argument this is just mirroring this right here, but I'd say not, considering it's such a big bevel, or big angle there. And then, of course, we get the same exact thing. I think it's the same model, just slightly tweaked texture work. Slightly tweaked, I think. Yeah, tweaked texture work, definitely. The worn edges are slightly different, but it's the same model, just scaled up and changed a little tiny bit. Mat one on top of the other, which is pretty awesome, actually. It looks great, especially with the fact that the textures aren't exactly the same. Very, very nice piece of work that is. I love it, actually. I absolutely love it. Standing up from there, of course, that's all just armor to hide that dolly rod or whatever that goes back, and you can see that dolly rod then disappears into another sort of, looks like almost the same exact thing. Yeah, it looks like it's the same exact black support that we have here, this sort of thing right here coming down and then merging into this. Same exact thing, just mirrored to the left now. If you look very closely, you can actually see it coming down right here. The flat surface then comes down an angle, same little gap, but instead of having that pulley thing, it looks like it just sort of merges into a bunch of stuff I can't really get a very clear look at. This is, I guess, the body of the gun, you'd say, in here, where it just merges into, well, stuff. Looks like we might have some modeling issues hidden in there, but very hard to even see. It's such a small area. Anyway, moving back again, sort of basically what we've done is gone back to this point, but of course we need to go forward again and then move towards the center of the gun to actually appreciate properly the stuff that's actually in the middle, because there's a huge amount of polygons right here. I wish I could turn on like wireframe mode with a simple click. By the way, I just want to point out the fact that it's so beautiful because this sort of comes down almost like a hand. Like, that's the palm right here, and these are the edges of fingers, or a foot or something, and you got another one right here, as if two hands are gently pressed against the top and bottom of this, holding it in, trying to hold it together. Pretty damn cool, that. I love seeing, the ones on the top and the bottom there. Awesome. And then, of course, the texture work of this sort of cog swirl thing in the middle here. No idea what its purpose would be. Maybe it would loosen everything. Doesn't look like it's connected there. Just a nice looking thing, I guess, in the texture. Then we come back to this point here, and you can actually see that this big section right here where all the pipes had merged into, it's still carrying on back here. These supports are really just to hold all the piping, or all the guard on the top and the bottom together. So that's what all that is about. There's actually a gap right here where all of this doesn't connect to any of this. Forgive me for any phone ringing you might have heard right there. Anyway, moving on, we do have all of this cog work here that appears to be merged together. I don't really see any point for all these cogs, but it looks incredible. Maybe you could imagine that if this thing ever jams, you could come out here with a hand tool, maybe clamp it onto one of the side things, and the hand tool will have its own cogs that would line up with that, so you can manually spin it with that, or maybe a larger machine for maintenance, who knows. But it's really awesome that all of these cogs are modeled in there, and they even have their own little bevels. They're not just these perfect square things. I can't exactly tell if there's a bevel right here on this. It almost looks like there is, which is crazy. But there definitely is one right here at the edges of the teeth themselves, which is pretty damn nifty. And some normal work there to add a little bolt in and some lines onto it and stuff like that. Very, very cool. And then of course we have this larger, almost bronze cylinder here with its own indentations into it. Sorry, it's really hard to move with the mouse, or not the mouse, but the controller. I'd expect, I'd push forward and I'd really, really slowly walk, but there seems to be only two speeds, slow, like walk, fast walk, and then run if you actually press it down. So I can't get like ever so slightly smooth, low walk. Anyway, you can actually see that this has a stupid amount of details in it. This is a cylinder, which means for every flat little section they make, like a little tiny flat bit there, a little flat bit there, a little flat bit there with edges dividing it up, that's a bunch of polygons. And every time they add any vertical edges through here that go along this way, that means it's just making more and more polys. So this is an incredibly high poly object right here, I'd say, because look, you can see the edge that runs along here, it is beveled. I mean, look at that. Instead of it just being a sharp edge, they have this sort of flat bevel to it, right? Oh god, my face is in the wrong spot. It's very, very difficult to move. That's the reason why I have the mouse. They have this sort of edge right here that's beveled in. And then once it gets to these big indentations that run along, the bottoms I don't think are beveled, but the edges up here, before it drops down into the indentation, they're beveled as well, just like the beginning section. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's the slight angle. If we get up to the right point, we can see it there, with some nice contrast between the bronze and the white background. This angle right here, instead of it just being a 90-degree angle where it just comes out and drops straight, it's got that cut in. Same here, here, there, and there. Bunches and bunches of little tiny details on that thing, which looks so damn incredible. I absolutely love this gun. I mean, just the amount of detail that's gone into it is fantastic. It's beautiful. Then we get this sort of just plain cylinder behind that, which you can't expect everything to have 22 trillion polygons and a lot of detail in it. It's just a plain cylinder like so, but they have some normal map and maybe displacement map stuff to sort of make these indentations into it, which look awesome. Pretty damn good. And then we come to another bulk section here. We're actually going to rotate the camera, walk about back, because you can see here, they want to break up the division. They want to divide, basically, this piece from this piece. Because it's supposed to be two different sets of metal, right? Two different components. And this piece sort of just merged together, but it sort of works because you can imagine they got interior clips and stuff and all sorts of nonsense holding them together. And they were two different colors that just sort of bumped up, and they have all these lines dividing them up, so it almost makes a lip there as well. Well, they gone ahead and put this lip in here, and they've also gone ahead and changed from a circular section here back to the sort of angular design here, where they had the slant down and slanted area back inwards. So they have the same thing here, which is pretty cool. And we even have some changes here between the top and the bottom, believe it or not. So you can see here we have this bump out right here, beveled edges, beveled edge all the way around here, this whole angle here, just matching what I was talking about up there. And then we have a nice indentation that comes out, or extrudes out, comes out, angle, straight, angle, and then straight back to make this beautiful little nub that's just sort of reaching out onto the flat surface of this big dark piece of metal, and with a bolt that's just screws or punctures straight into it. Might be a rivet or something actually, but just pops right into it to hold the whole thing, to hold this whole lip together. And you can imagine this whole lip actually reaches into this piece and holds it together as well. I love it. I absolutely adore it. And you'll also notice when I started up here, there's this sort of, this thing bumps up for no reason whatsoever, and it's got this indentation into it where you can see a little tiny opening, sort of square opening. Well, at the bottom you can see why that's there, because remember that I said they had this piece here sort of mirrored left to right going down right here? That's where it sort of pipes in through. But at the top, for some reason, they don't actually have that, which I'm not exactly sure why, but it is a variant in the design, and you can see here, it just goes straight in. It's got this big sort of darker area that pops out, which is sort of the lip to connect it in. You might say, I wish they had a little bit more detail right here, maybe another little bump out or something, but honestly, I think it's enough when it's such a tiny, tiny little piece of detail. So it works. I just do like the fact that they do have it down here, the whole mirrored section of that. And then we have some piping. It's time to actually start noticing the piping here, isn't it? So where does this piping come from? Well, the piping up here pops out of here, goes around. It doesn't just go to a straight line to here and then go straight down or something. It actually, if you look at it from here, goes straight up towards us, straight down, but from here it's going down at an angle, and then it goes straight over, it curves around and goes back. And let's go ahead and check just to see, is it the same on the other side? It looks to be the same on the other side. So I'm not sure exactly what the point of it is, but it looks absolutely incredible. And then the fact that it has these sort of arms that are reaching out and clasping onto it, and the fact that keeping the sort of angular design of this gun, they didn't just have circular clamps on these, they actually went ahead and have these sort of sharp flat edges with beveled corners onto it, almost like a, I want to say a cog screw, but a bolt or something reaching around and grabbing onto it. And then these come down at an angle, straight down at another angle, and before having the same bolted thing here. And you'll actually notice that the pipe at the bottom, instead of having this drop in it, is just a straight across pipe to break up the top and bottom once again. And you'll actually notice that the upper pipe, it sort of went into all this bulk right here, whereas the bottom pipe, it goes straight up and into just this the center body that we sort of have here. And in fact, it's got a breakup I'll be talking about in a second. Well, I just love the fact that they do actually take the time to make sure it has that little lip, that little divider clamp that reaches in and blends in with everything. And it actually looks like it's blending in very nicely. It's not like a really nasty seam or something. The top here, unfortunately, they have the modeled geometry in of it sort of beveling out, this little tiny lip here, but it's still silver. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I just call it silver. It's sort of a yellowish color, isn't it? Like titanium or something, eh? Yeah, you can see they got the detail model in there, but it's just the same color as the pipe, so it doesn't stick out as much. It should also be pointed, if we can get right up to this crazy thing, that right here we have the bump out and a little tiny beveled edge coming down. So not only do we have these reaching up and just holding onto it, which I think would have been enough, but they actually have this thing that bumps out right here and sort of holds on to it. So it makes sure it's really, it looks like they really got a grip, like it's reaching out there and almost bleeding onto it to hold on. Unfortunately, we do have a bit of a seam right here that you can definitely see running along the whole thing, but I guess they chose to put it right there instead of on the other side, the top of it, just so it shouldn't be too noticeable. I honestly think they could have put it along the inner seam to the left side of this pipe, and it would be even less noticeable, but that is nitpicky considering you have to get right there to be able to notice it. Right there you can still see it, there you probably wouldn't notice, so you got to get right up to and notice it, so that is quite nitpicky. Okay, what else do we got? Well, these things that go up and down, which have these lovely angles on them, flat part the angle, as I said. I love the fact that it is still a call-out, a continuing of the style of this, where it had the same sort of thing here, and of course here. It's keeping that same sort of pattern going along it, even though these right here are sort of a different angle than the previous ones here, it's still keeping the same sort of thing. And of course we also have these nice little handles that are modeled in here. No idea the purpose for them, but they're pretty damn cool to have. Maybe if you just want to shift stuff, maybe if you unscrew it and you're taking everything apart, this makes it easier to move some of the components. Pretty damn cool though, and the fact that they have the flat surface here and here before angling up, and they're just in that angle up. They don't just go out in a big circular thing like this, they keep the same design. It is so damn cool of having that flat angle. And of course, as per usual, it's all bloody beveled. All the little edges are beveled. This close-up, it almost looks a bit too shiny. The bevels almost look a little off, as if it's almost chrome or something, but from this distance, it's all pretty damn good. What else do we have here? Well, we've gone over this. We haven't really talked about the main body here. I guess it's probably a good time. It is basically the same sort of thing as this right here, angle, flat, angle. It's just angle, flat, angle, and I believe it's flat on the top and bottom as well. If we really quickly crouch. Yeah, that looks like it's pretty flat on the bottom as well. And then it actually reaches a point, oh god, forgive the camera spurging, right here. You can see it pretty well like that, where this actually bumps out. And it's the same exact sort of angles and everything, it's just slightly bigger, so this merges into it. And it's in there and dark enough that I don't think it really needs a lip or anything to break up this edge right here. I will note that it looks like they need to flip some of their normals here, where it looks like they have a pipe that comes up right here, which is pretty damn cool. It's sort of like they have this right here, just this section from right here up to right here. Sort of like that, but the normals are reversed. So basically this is an inside out piece of metal right here that sort of comes up and goes over and pops to there. I think that's what's happened right here. Now I'm looking at it, I think the normals are reversed on that. It also looks like there might just be a flat plane right here. It's possible something else has been reversed in there as well, which is slightly unfortunate. By the way, just look how smooth that line is right there. You're not seeing any really sharp edges or anything. Really nice stuff. Like, you're not able to count polys or nothing like that. Pretty awesome. And then, of course, we also have this piece of metal that circles around the main body. You'll look at the bottom, and I think it bends upwards a little bit right here. It's a bit, I don't know, you could call it lazy. So it bends upwards to merge in right there to the bottom piece, but it does have these same sort of designs we've been talking about on everything else. And it does have the cut in right here, which is, again, not just a rectangle because they've beveled the corners. Pretty awesome. And let's just double check to make sure the other side is exactly the same. And it looks to be indeed. And in fact, I'd argue that maybe I was wrong about it seeming a bit lazy, because it looks like at the top and the bottom, this sort of bends up to merge with the flat base of that sort of piece. Well, up here, it bends down to sort of just merge with the top of this. So it's actually, it's symmetrical but slightly different, where the top just merges into the main body, the bottom merges into that connecting piece. Pretty cool. Pretty damn cool. And I don't think it just merges into it. It probably just touches the base of it, but it's really hard to see. Moving on from that, though, we've already covered the main body that's in there. We've already talked about how this piece has its little tiny lip here that sort of merges into it, nice divider. Not really too much we can actually see in there. Again, we have a piece here that reaches up, and I'm assuming goes around the, whatever we called that thing from left to right, the big pipe piece here, dolly, I believe as I call it. That's not the right word for it, but closest I can think of right now. And we got the same thing down here where it all just sort of merges into stuff that we can't actually see any detail of. Then we have something very odd. This is actually a curved, bent piece, believe it or not. But the thing is, it's got so much else going on around it, you usually probably won't even notice it. And if we go right up to it and look in here, you can see this piece right here has a curve to it. It just curves right down. It also has an indentation, and then it carries on the curve. And this actually goes along the whole piece to right here, where it's got big heavy-duty piece, and an indentation, big heavy-duty piece. And of course it loops around at a sharp edge down at the bottom, which I'm actually fine with that sharp edge, by the way. I don't think that corner right there should be beveled. It's perfect as it is. And the reason it is perfect, and I don't think it needs a bevel or anything, is because it goes down past the base of this metal plate. So this metal plate stops right here, and this goes past it as if it's merging into this separate metal piece. So it's almost like it's a clip. And the just plain hard 90-degree angles there of a rectangle just coming down and stopping make it look like it's really just holding into it and chopping in, just gripping it, which is pretty damn cool. And you can also see that this whole section right here that we were talking about has the curves. It's all like one big piece that runs all the way from up there, curves down, down. And the reason I did down, down is because, of course, if we look at the side, it doesn't just go straight down. It has an angle to it as well, which is just incredible. Absolutely incredible. And it's really hard to see, but at the top you can even see there's some stuff modeled in right here that pops out and comes down all the way to right here. Like this sort of line right here, this edge, this carries on all the way up and over and presumably is mirrored on the other side. Same with this line here, making sort of a clap. Clip, what's the word? Clisp, clap, clip, sort of clasping, there we go, the whole thing together. And of course we get some normal map indentations. And even here, it is just this simple wide piece, not very wide, coming all the way down across the bent piece and then turning into this. Well, then they have some of it merging outwards, sort of like it is reaching out, really holding on to both sides of the gun. Not just this simple little tiny thing that might have like a little tiny bolt that would pop free and the whole thing come loose. No, it reaches out and then clips on. Very, very cool, that. I love that a lot. And then, of course, now that we're at this section, there's actually a huge amount of detail here. Similar to the front, you'll actually notice that, once again, we have an angle, a flat surface, and then an angle. We actually ducked to really see, but yes, indeed, we do have an angle there. I can't really get any closer, but you can see there's an angle. And then this whole area has a bunch of detail to it. And similar to how at the front this bumped up, we do have this slowly bumping up, and that's mirrored on the top, going back down. Sort of a carrying on of the same thing, but it's actually a bit reversed, because this one had the angle farther to the left, this one angle here, and then the top one is farther to the left instead of the bottom one being. Interesting little thing there. I don't think it's exactly a call out to the front of it, but it is still carrying the same sort of design style, which I absolutely adore on this. All the 90 degree, or what was it, 145 degree angles, was it? The one that's over 100 degrees, this one right here. I absolutely adore that. And then all these little cut-ins. It's so damn beautiful. I adore it. And I think maybe, yep, look at this. This isn't just a flat surface. I thought this was all one big flat surface right here. Turns out that right here, from this point to this point, this is a flat surface that bends forward. It's not just all forward back, it actually bends sort of inward. This front corner has been pushed in. So it gives you a nice little amount of detail there. I think possibly, I don't think this is here, but it is cool that it has that. It's very nifty, and then it comes down. If you look at the bottom here, they actually have the bump up a little bit, and then this flat surface at an angle, and then another flat surface, just flat with a little bit of detail in the texture. I mean, it is so awesome, this lower section here. Just the fact that all these in these areas here that I'm mousing over, they're all indented in. Each one has been pushed inwards. And then you have this sort of heavy metal edge that goes around the whole thing, around each of those different sections, while still keeping this awesome detail of sort of curve there, but then flat, angle, flat. Very, very cool. This whole front section here is just slightly squeezed, as if it's sort of holding on to this lower section of machinery right there. I absolutely love that. I actually have a little bit of like the thing at the front, just upside down. Like this thing here, flipped upside down. Interesting little choice there. Almost looks like it's not actually modeled in. In fact, I don't think it is. No, it probably is modeled in. Damn, that is something else. That is something else. Ooh, and that camera moving like that is probably making a million people sick. It's very disconcerting. You even see in here, it's hard to see in here. I'm not going to look at it too much more now. Flat surface, angle down, sort of like just big bulky build-up pieces. It's so hard to see. I can't blame them for not having, stupid detail like this. In fact, I think it would be silly if they did have too much silly, super small detail inside the area, because it is so impossible to see. What else do we have? Well, let's just admire the paneling here. Because on the bottom here, we have all these panels that are pushed in, which look pretty cool, but I'm glad they didn't do this for the whole thing, because I quite enjoy these panels here, where they're all as if it's a flat surface behind them, but they have all these panels modeled in, pushed out. And it's not just a simple that's in. And my game just alt-tabbed me for some reason, but I'm back. But yeah, you can see, I just love the fact that instead of it being indents down there, it's almost outcroppings here, where all these panels are actually modeled in and sitting on top of the surface. I mean, look at this. This is a bit of a change. It's not the tiny beveled corners here of a rectangle, but it still works somehow. It's a smooth end right here to this otherwise rectangular piece that goes back, and even goes over a divider right here, which if we were to look at it from the side, yeah, it starts to come down from the top, and actually I think this whole section from here backwards maybe even pushes in towards the center of the gun left or right a little bit. And I mean, each of these panels are also incredible. I mean, you get this big panel here with a angular or a curved cut in right here, a circular cut in, so it's not just an angle. This is like everything changes a little bit to the back, but I'm all right with it because they did it in such a clever way. It's absolutely beautiful. And then you still get some of the same angular design where you get straight up and down, flat, angle flat, and then it angles back out as if this piece is further out, holding on and latching to keep this piece in, as if you were to remove this as if you were to remove this big piece of metal, you'd have to first take off this one, and to get this one off, you'd first have to take off this one, and then to get this one off, you'd first have to unlatch this, which leads down to that. It's just like, so you'd unlatch this first, and maybe you do it by popping that latch, and this just swings around. Then this whole piece just moves out, maybe this slides straight out. Then you can remove this piece and this piece, which would then free up this piece. And because you removed this one, you could also probably remove this one, and then you could unscrew that little thing and take out this big separate piece right here. And the edge work at this is so cool. The angles and the line work here, I love it, because you get that angular piece, the flat, it angles up, it comes in, it angles up, angle. It's just so damn beautiful. I adore it. And you might say that this section here is really thin and small. It looks like you just bump it and bend it, but it is a pretty hefty piece of metal. And then with it right next to that, where's it going to go if you bump it and bend it? It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I absolutely adore it. I mean, it's just, there's so much detail right here. So much detail. And then if you were to look at it from the side, yeah, you can actually see that each of these pieces of metal, when they're coming up from this base right here, they come up, angle, and then the whole flat face. They're not just straight up and down from the sides, and then a lot of them also have beveled corners as well. This one has a tiny little bevel to it as well. I mean, it's just insane. And then we get this awesome little bolt right here, which is actually, I don't think they model any of the side detail, but it does have a bevel, and then it does go straight inwards in the middle. It actually looks like that's modeled in, which is pretty damn nifty. I mean, it's just so much stuff to it. So much stuff to it. Absolutely love it. Just hit me. Let's check the other side and see if those normals that are reversed are... Aha! Look! Yeah, you see here? This is the way that section should have looked. It just occurred to me it might be fixed on the other side, and sure enough it was. You can see here that they probably built this first and then copied to the other side and forgot to flip the normals or something like that. But yeah, you can see here, this is just awesome of the way it's supposed to look. Sort of like it's holding this whole big section here together, where this interior piece bulked out, it's sort of holding that onto the smaller interior one. And then it sort of has just an odd flat plane here, but it merges into a lot of other stuff, sort of acting as a clip to hold it together. That's pretty cool. It's pretty damn cool. What else do we have? Well, we have more piping heading along the top. I thought I just saw something else. Oh, yep, there it is, right here. This, a little tiny soft edge right here, a corner, a partial circle that sort of leads up to the flat surface in the top. So it leads down, and then that's where it starts changing into a more circular based design at the very, very back in the top here. And it sort of works for the top because we got this right here, and that's when all these little ribs start shooting up from here. It's lined up vertically with that, which is really, really cool for that pipe that's being held on to that sort of connection puck right here at the very top. God, I love that. Can we get a... Let's move back over to... Ooh, we just ran through that. Let's move back over to this side here. The lighting seems to glare off things a little bit better, letting you see the geometry. But you can see they have... And this just amazes me, because it's not Lazy Man's just a stupid rectangle or something. It keeps the same sort of geometry idea of it comes up, goes flat, and then goes back in, and then has a flat surface. So it is a rectangle, but it's with these huge beveled edges. They have a little bit of texture detail with this indentation in the normal or whatnot. They have another piece in here behind it that I couldn't even see before that bumps out, goes up, has that same angle, so it's sort of merged. So it's sort of mirroring the same shape and design that this whole section has. That bent piece, the angle that came down and merged into this, is clearly separate here, but it sort of still has the angle, but then back here it starts merging into and meeting up with these edges here, which turn it back into a sort of angle straight down with a little bend and then straight down again. It's just, and this here, these edges here, the division in the texture here with the seam that breaks it up and makes a darker section here before it turns into this almost motor at the back. This almost looks like an exhaust port. It looks like this dark section right here might have actually been modeled into it. The piping, again, has the hands that sort of reach around the whole thing, but this time they're actually circular, because remember, there's been a slight change in the way things are drawn now. At the back of the gun, or at the top of the gun, or right here at the back, it's becoming a more circular design than the more angular at the front, but it happened almost casually with little tiny callouts and edges that line up. So now we don't have those hard edges here that look like a bolt, we just have it circular. And then the angular design still does continue, though, of angle, straight up and down and then angle at the bottom. So damn cool. And then we have, of course, this random pipe that loops around the whole top section, comes along here, comes down, and loops around to here, where once again we have a circular holder and a curved piece that leads all the way up and merges in sort of with the connection puck, which is pretty damn cool. And if we move to the side, you can see that that piece that comes down, it wasn't just going from here to right there. Nope, it came down at an angle and then came all the way back before going all the way around and doing the whole thing again. So damn cool. And also that piece that we were looking at right there, you can see from the side, is offset. It's not just behind this, it's offset to the left more, so it's actually sticking out a bit from here. So you don't just get a very plain or flat area. Like if it was all just like this, where you got a little straight line and a flat area behind it, it's a bit bland, so they have a little bit of breakup right there. And then we have all of this crazy stuff here at the very back, where you can actually see through this almost like heating grids that they have stuck up here. A very strange thing, but it still has the design scheme of flat, angle, flat, and then of course mirrored at the other corner, almost like it's holding it all together. I believe this actually meets up with this section here. I was wrong about, by the way, the seam in a darker area. It looks like it's just supposed to be an angle or an edge, but it still looks pretty damn cool to have this sort of back plate bending in as if it is a heavier piece of metal, or heftier at the very least. We have some more grids right here with the same thing that we have right here, just right here. So instead of having these little bend down pieces on the right side of the gun, now they're on the back of the gun. Pretty damn awesome. We have these almost, oh, what am I standing on? Okay, I'm fine with that. Oh, no, let me back up. Okay, hold on. Can't get up there. Never. There we go. Okay. We have these things directly in front of us with the bronze. Pretty simple piece. It's just a rectangle with some textures on it, but it has a very slightly beveled edge, and then of course all the just standard top edges are beveled as well. Up here we have an angle that comes down. Now it comes down at an angle and then goes straight down. The whole top section here is part of a cylinder, so you can see this cylinder that goes all the way around the whole thing. You can see a very cylindrical design here, so same sort of thing. So you can see these are actually merging into that. Over at the very back, you can see we have these little circular pegs that pop out. There's 4 of them, and they're holding on this panel right there. Stupid little tiny detail there, but you can see Apocalypse arms, some text that you could almost read. I can't really get close enough or at the right angle to read it. But you can also see that the panel it's on isn't just a flat square panel. Once again, it has these little tiny angles to keep up the design and sort of mirror and match with that, as well as the fact that all of its edges appear to be beveled. Completely nutty. I love it. Oh my god, and I was wrong about these pieces, how I thought they just came and merged into this circular piece here. They actually have a flat opening and then another angle, and then before they go straight down. So you get this sort of empty space right below them so the airflow can, I guess, work. Oh, it's just crazy, this thing. This gun, it's one of the reasons probably why I'm so unhappy with some of the stuff on this ship, and the reason these bevels feel so huge to me. Like, this looks good here, but then these bevels here, they just seem so smooth and weak, and then the ship has this sort of blobbish sort of feeling here where it's like, oh, it's a poly there and a poly there, and then it's flat, and instead of it just being like a straight edge all the way down or something, or a straight edge and then flat, and it just sort of feels more smooth than I like after spending all this time staring at Apocalypse Arms' crazy good looking gun. Anyway, we're almost done with this thing. I know, silly long video for a gun, but my god, it's such an incredible thing. Especially when it's just put up against the ship where you have, you know, this panel gap right here. Look at the size of that panel gap. Let's go in third person. You could stick like your whole pinky finger in that panel gap. That is a huge, huge panel gap right there. That is insane. Absolutely insane. So this ship has overall let me down on an art front. There's some finicky stuff like right here, this sort of pinched thing. It's nasty, and then you get this where it's like, oh cool, it's going to be a line that comes and it just sort of merges out and bleeds in, and that sort of weak angle right there. And then again, the panel gaps look huge. They look like they're a centimeter wide and everything gently folds into them as if the whole ship's made out of a soft rubber. I hate it. Anyway, enough of that. You can see why I'm not doing a close look at the ship. I've done it 2 times now, and it literally becomes like an hour and a half of me just complaining about all that at the front of the ship. The back gets better. Anyway, this thing, we're just about done. I don't think there's too much more to say. Again, though, it is carrying on with the design has changed to a more circular thing, where you can see now we have flat area and it goes straight up. Flat area, so that's not really circular, but you'll notice that the bevel that is in the corner is a rounded bevel. Same with this right here, and it comes back this right here, but it is still keeping some of the design calls because it does have a straight up and down rectangular thing, where technically, even though, like, if we were to look at those handles right here that weren't really circular, they, from this angle, they're rectangular, from this angle, they're still rectangular, and then they became circular from the forward angle here. Well, it's still, even though they were circular, they look rectangular from the side, so they're keeping that sort of design here with its rectangular like that. And then, of course, the circular cut-in that then just goes down the bottom before another little bump up and over. I mean, this little tiny micro details in here. Absolutely incredible. And then the final pieces, we get some more light metal in here with a flat plane, like the piece that was inverted. The normals need to be flipped on that side, which then comes up and over. And upsy-doodle-dandy, I can't really tell where it goes. It looks like it might go back and try to merge with everything else. Oh my god, that was an amazing angle. Oh, wow, look at that. You can actually see, yeah, it does reach back. And it's like a whole bunch of just light metal bracing that holds it all together. Pretty damn cool. Oh, it's so very cool to see that. They actually modeled all that in there. You'd expect them to just fake it. Like, just have some big black blob in there of just metal and be like, yeah, it's all held together in there. But no, they actually have the flat plane, the piece that comes up at an angle, and the piece that comes back down at an angle, another flat plane, holding it all together with these pieces reaching up and going around the main bulk body of the machine. Oh my god, I'd love to be able to take all these panels off and just run my hands over and feel all the different shapes and see them all. Oh, it's just fantastic. Fantastic. You also see from this side, there's also another little piece of metal that just sticks out right here. Another one right here. These are just sort of flat, horizontally flat pieces, sort of breaking up what would otherwise just be a cylindrical section here. And then we also have something I completely missed, the fact that this rectangular piece here, the bronze one with the circles, is actually sitting on top of a bumped out section of its own. Sort of the same exact model, but wider, bigger, and connecting into the spherical piece, but it's a darker piece of metal. And then down here, oh, look at this. This line came back and then bumps down to another rectangular thing. I didn't even catch that. And it's a nice match, too, to like the two little supports there, and then the one big support there, and then the two supports right here. One on the top, one on the bottom, reaching around the whole thing. And then we have that circular piece we talked about, and that then went back. We also have a flat piece and a sort of angle piece, sort of the match it. Again, going from the angular sort of front to a slightly more spherical back, or circular back part. Oy vey. And then we get this flat top, straight down, and once again that beautiful angle. A bit unsure about just how sharp that is, but I guess it works. I'd almost expect it to be a little bit beveled. It almost feels odd to say it on a weapon, but like a safety hazard or something. And then it goes back straight up at an angle before, I believe, flattening out right there with this final, almost, I want to say, vent. If these are all cooling, that almost looks like a vent in there. Yeah, I'd say that looks much more like a vent than anything else, which is a beautiful little piece of geometry in its own right, because it's got this, flat angle at top, flat, same as the rest of it, except for it's more squat, it's more rectangular from a left or right standpoint, and of course then it has these curved out pieces which match the slightly design change at the back of the gun to have the hot air or whatever comes out of it just shooting out of the back like its own little jet. You can almost imagine this whole gun turning into a little tiny fighter ship that is just a big, massive cannon. Some sort of doomsday drone that's just a big gun and one little jet. Absolutely beautiful. And you can see that we still have the same, there's an indent here where this piece of metal sticks out farther than this actual flat surface here. Same as we had at the front when we first pointed that out. And then the very final, okay, hello. How you doing? Then the very final piece right here is this right here. These cylindrical sections that are, once again, just as we saw way at the front with that sort of copper stuff right here, once again, modeled in, where you can see copper interior cylindrical sections. Then you get the beveled edge of this one, flat bevel, straight down to the yellow, and then once again, this pops back up. It has bevels on the edges, this has bevels on it, and then it doesn't just come straight back down to the copper. Actually, you can see, we can just get in here really close. I wish I could just lean in with like the rift or something. You can see it drops down a little bit, bevels back out, and then comes the rest of the way down before it meets with it. I mean, it's just incredible. And then we, of course, have another nice little bevel right here and right here. So it's, just beautiful. Absolutely adore it. Absolutely adore it. And then we have this cylindrical section in here with this little bump out, the bump out that runs around the whole thing with these that come out, and once again with that angular design I love so much, they come out, they go down an angle, and then they come the rest of the way with a circular little clip, holding it all together. I absolutely adore this gun. It is by far one of the coolest, most detailed models I've ever had the pleasure of just sticking my face against and looking at for ages. I just wish this ship felt like it had the same amount of detail. I mean, we look at this and you could say, okay, it's mold, it's pockety, but it sort of just looks like blurry texture work. I guess sort of like this, but for some reason this just feels so much more obvious to me. Also, it's on a much bigger scale, isn't it? I mean, we're much farther away from that piece of metal right there than we are right there. About double the distance, I'd say. Yeah, our head's almost against that thing at the back, where it's another few feet over there, and yet it still looks uneasy. Yeah, I don't know. Not happy with the ship itself, but this gun, I'm very happy with. Interior of the ship's alright, by the way. By the way, yeah, boop, circular piece with another bevel before going into the center. I mean, just awesome. I love this gun, obviously. Oh my god, there. From this distance, it looks absolutely incredible. I mean, look at all the detail you can see just from this distance. All those edges, all those lines, like these angles going up right here. You get them mirrored all right there, and then you get the front, you get more and more. And actually, I wish this one was pulled a little bit forward, so you could say maybe they're getting sharper as they go forward. The details on the front of the gun that you can see the little tiny lip at the beginning. I mean, just, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I love this gun. And the way it transitions to slightly more rounded stuff at the very back. Before the very, for a cylinder at the very, very back. Absolutely incredible. I love this gun so much. Compared to the ship, which, for one, its texture is very hard to actually see any detail, and it looks like a rubber from this distance. Without a flashlight, it actually ends up feeling like I could almost dig my nails into it and peel the ship or something. I don't know. But that gun, man, I adore that gun. Alrighty, guys and gals, that was an extremely close look at the, what did we call it? Apocalypse Arms Super Duper Happy Fun Time Gatling gun. I can't remember the exact name. I'm not running over the control panel again. It is incredible. I'm going to keep looking at the Vanguard. I probably won't do a video on it until it gets updated again and changes some of those things. There's another video that I found on Reddit the other day where a guy talks about, how it's changed from concept to actual production. And I was like, oh, maybe that's why I'm feeling so unhappy with it as well, because it did have some silhouette changes to the top of it as well. Alrighty, guys and gals, thank you a bunch for watching. I hope you found this informative. I absolutely love the amount of detail that they have put into every little nook and cranny of this gun and most of their ships. Yeah, I love it. Thanks so much for watching, guys and gals, and I shall see you next time. Ta-ta.